Hello guys, I am going to go through the study guide question by question. I think this will help us before our test tomorrow. Instead of just putting the key up on instead of just putting the key up on Canvas and having you check your answers, I'll go through and explain each one. So I hope this helps. And then obviously you can rewatch it or rewind, whatever you need to do as many times as you need to do it. Okay, so your test is tomorrow. Please follow along. Your test will be on Canvas, and so it's going to be important that you have paper right beside you. Do not try to do these without showing your work. Okay, I'm going to have a box page for you to show your work in, even though you're submitting your answers on Canvas through quizzes. And then you're going to upload your work to Canvas. So I can give you some points for showing your work. Okay. All right. Study guide. Here we go. You are to write a positive or negative integer that represents the situation. Okay. If we lose 4 yards in a football game, that would be a -4. If you find a $5 bill, you've just earned $5. That'd be a +5. 3 and 4 is absolute value. Remember, the absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. It's 4 spots away from 0. And the absolute value of -10 is 10. -10 is also 10 spots away from 0. Absolute value is always positive. Okay, graph the integer and its opposite. We're going to plot -2 and the opposite, which is +2. These number lines are not labeled, so I recommend you put 0 right in the middle. You need to label your graph. This would be -1 and -2. And there's our -2. To the right would be +1 and +2, and there is its opposite, +2. So make sure you are reading the directions that we want the integer and its opposite. Completing the statement using less than or greater than. Remember, the number to the left is always less, okay? So if I'm comparing a -5 to a -7, -7 is further to the left on the number line. -5 is closer to 0 and to those whole positive numbers. So -5 is greater than -7. The absolute value of -3 is 3. The absolute value of -6 is 6. So solve the absolute value first, and then 3 is less than 6. Order the integers from least to greatest. And again, just make sure to read carefully tomorrow. Least to greatest, farthest to the left on the number line would be -2, and then -1. And then we're at 0, and then those positive numbers, +4, +5. Least to greatest for number 9, farthest to the left would be -8, -2, -1, 0, and then +4 and 5. Okay. Graph the number and its opposite. Again, I would put 0 right in the middle. I say this is -1, -2, and -3. +1, +2, +3. -2 and 1/3 is going to be a little bit to the left of -2. Remember, you're going to divide it up into 3 equal sections. So -2 and 1/3 would be right here. The opposite of -2 and 1/3 would be a +2 and 1/3. And again, we can divide this up into 3 sections, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. So 2 and 1/3 would be right here. Okay. Number 11, we are graphing 25 hundredths on the number line. Think of quarters. Again, if 0 is right in the middle, we can put a -1 over here and a +1 on the right of 0. Remember that 25 hundredths is 1/4. Think of quarters. Okay, so if we wanted to divide our number line up into 4 equal parts, we can do that. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 4/4. So 0.25 or 1/4 would be here. And then the inverse or the opposite, negative 1/4, negative 2/4, negative 3/4, and then negative 4/4 as a whole. This one would be a negative 0.25. Okay. Moving on to number 12. We are comparing a negative 7/8 with a negative 8/10. Remember the easiest way to compare fractions. Instead of getting a common denominator and doing a whole lot of work, we can do our cross product. So remember that we can do 10 times a negative 7, which is negative 70. 8 times a negative 8 is a negative 64. And then you're asking yourself which one is further to the left on the number line. Negative 70 is further to the left, so it is less. So negative 7/8 is less than negative 8/10. Okay. For number 13, okay, we're looking at decimals. You can also turn these into fractions if you wanted to. Negative 1 and 1800ths. Negative 1 and 2500ths if you wanted to, and then you could cross product, okay? Or this is, you could always round as well, okay? Negative 1 and 1800ths is going to be greater than negative 1 and 2500ths, because if you think of a negative 25 versus a negative 18, negative 18 is greater than negative 25. It'd be closer to 0, closer to those positive numbers. The table shows the elevation of 4 divers. Which diver dives down the farthest, meaning farthest or the least number. So again, if you're thinking about 0 being sea level, you would have negative 5, a negative 8, a negative 10, and a negative 18. So this guy is the farthest down or the deepest. 15, a small crab burrowed negative 3/5 inch into the sand. A larger crab has burrowed a negative 5/9 inch into the sand. Which crab has burrowed further into the sand, deeper down, which means we're comparing less than or greater than. Again, we can do cross products. 9 times a negative 3 is a negative 18. Going this way, 5 times a negative 5 is negative 25. 9 times 3 is not 18. I'm sorry. How about 9 times a negative 3 is a negative 27? Okay, glad I caught that. So now when I am thinking about which crab has burrowed further, deeper into the sand, negative 27 is further to the left on the number line, or it's going to be deeper. It's going to, on our vertical number line, it's going to be further down. So this one is further down. Negative 3/5 would be the small crab. Okay. Write an ordered pair corresponding to the points. Some of you had some problems when we did our review earlier this week. Remember that you always travel on your X axis first, your Y axis second. Remember your alphabet. X comes before Y, X, Y, Z. Okay, so we're always going to go left and right first, and then we're always going to go up and down second. Point A. I'm going to use a highlighter just so you can kind of see what I'm thinking. 2 to the right is a positive 2. 2 down is a negative 2. So our ordered pair is 2, negative 2. Point B. We're going to go 2 to the left, which is a negative 2. 2 down, which is a negative 2. So our ordered pair is negative 2, negative 2. Point C. We're going to go 2 to the right, positive 2. Up 4, which is a positive 4. So our C is 2, 4. And D, we're going to go 2 to the left. That would be negative 2. 2 up, positive 2. Negative 2, positive 2. Number 17, we're going to plot and label this point and label it Y. Plot and label. Okay, so -4, -2. Remember, your first one is your X, which means I'm going to travel on that X axis 4 spots to the left since it is negative. And then +2, which means I'm going to go up 2 because it's a +2. So there's my point that I plotted, and I am labeling it Y. Doesn't really look like a Y, does it? Okay. And then below it wants to know what quadrant. Okay, let's talk about quadrants. Remember that quadrants go in counterclockwise position, and they are written with Roman numerals. Okay, so some of you are just writing 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your worksheets this past week. Make sure we write those with Roman numerals, okay? They're going to be written like that on the test, so you have to know what they are. Top right, this is quadrant 1, counterclockwise, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So Y is in quadrant 2. Okay, some reflections. We're going to plot the point 3, -2. 3, -2. 3 is positive, so to the right. 2 is negative, so down. There's my point, 3, -2. It says, then reflect it across the x-axis and label the reflected point A. Okay, again, here's my x-axis, which means I'm jumping across the x-axis. If I'm reflecting it, I want to go across the x-axis. So if I'm going to reflect it, since it's 3, use a highlighter. If this point is 2 units below the x-axis, we want to go 2 units above the x-axis and label it A. So that would be +3, +2. That's a reflection over the x-axis. Now I'm going to erase my highlights. Now reflect 3, -2 across the y-axis and label the reflected point B. Now we're jumping across the y-axis. Here's my y-axis. I want to reflect it over that line. So go back to 3, -2, which is right here. And this point is 3 units to the right of y, so I want to go 3 units to the left of the y-axis. And we're going to plot it and name that one B. Okay. If you have questions about that, email me or stop the video, rewind a little bit, and go through those directions again. 19. The points C, D, and E are the vertices, which means they intersect to make a triangle. Plot these points, and we put draw the triangle. Find the area of the triangle. Do your formula on the lines, meaning formula, substitute, start solving. Point C is going to be at 2, 3, to the right 2, up 3, and let's label them. D is at -3, -1, meaning to the left 3 is negative, down 1 is -1. That's our D. And E is +2, -1, and we're labeling that one E. Once we connect our dots, it told us it was going to form a triangle, and it did. Okay. And now we're going to find the area of that triangle. We should know area is 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided in half. And we're going to substitute in this next line. Okay, let's look at the base of this triangle. It really doesn't matter which one you're using. The base, I'm going to go this way. It looks like a triangle has been rotated. It is 1, 2, 3, 4. is one of the dimensions, and one of them is 3, 4, 5. 5 units is the other dimension, okay? So it doesn't really matter which one we put in for base, which one we put in for height, okay? So I'm just going to put in 5 and 4 and start solving. We normally in class do base times height first. Base times height, 5 times 4 gives us 20, and half of 20 is 10. And remember, the area is always squared. So this is 10 units squared. Evaluate. Here's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. I really encourage you guys when you do your test tomorrow to have your notes opened, okay? I'm allowing you to use your notes. Use them, okay? The first one is addition. So go to your adding and subtracting notes tomorrow. These are different signs. You're going to find the difference. The difference of 5 and 3 is 2. There's more positives, so it's a positive 2. Number 21, I see minus a negative, which we cancel and make into positives. This is 11 plus 16. Same sign, find the sum. The sum is 17. Number 22, that's a negative 3 minus 4. Remember that minus sign is a synonym for a negative. So a negative 3, negative 4, those are the same signs. So you're going to find the sum. The sum is 7. And they're all negative. So there's lots of negatives. So it's going to be a negative 7. 23, again, same sign. They're both negative. So you're going to find the sum. The sum of 9 and 21 is 30. And they're all negative. So it's going to be a negative 30. Remember, sum means addition, difference means subtraction. Number 24, one's negative, one's positive. Those are different signs. So I'm going to find the difference, which means I'm subtracting the two numbers. The difference is 6, and there's more negative, so it's going to be a negative 6. 25, I see that double negative, so they're going to turn into positive. I'm going to rewrite this as negative 22 plus 12. Those are different signs. I'm going to find the difference. The difference between 22 and 12 is 10. Difference means subtract. There's more negative, so it's going to be a negative 10. The last two, 26 and 27, now we're turning to multiplication and division. So I would flip tomorrow in your notes to the multiplying and dividing integers. So remember, the only way to get a negative answer is to have one of each sign, one positive and one negative, just like we do on number 26. The 8 is positive, the 6 is negative. So if I have one of each, I automatically am going to have a negative answer. And when we multiply 6 and 8, we get 48. So I have a negative 48. 27 is division. We know 18 divided by 3 is 6. And now let's figure out the sign. Remember, two negatives cancel and make a positive. So it's going to be a positive 6. 28. Mrs. Wormel's checking account balance is a negative $22. She deposited $95. Guys, we've talked about this in class, but it's been a minute. Depositing money means putting money into your account. So we're adding $95. If you see something that says withdrawing it, you're taking it out, which means you would be subtracting, or that's a negative, okay? So we're going to add $95 and wants to know what is her balance now. Same thing. These are different signs. We're going to find the difference. The difference between 95 and 22 is $73, and I've got way more positive. So it's a positive $73 is in her account now. Okay. 29, the water level of a pond decreased 3 inches per day for 4 days, meaning it went down 3 inches on the first day, and then another 3 inches on the second day, another 3 inches on the third day, another 3 inches on the fourth day. Okay, so another way we are going to write that is went down 3 inches per day for 4 days. We're multiplying. A negative times a positive is a negative. So the pond has went down, which is why it's a negative. It went down 12 inches after 4 days. Okay. Alrighty, fair game review. So these are problems from past chapters. Number 30, we're just dividing. Remember, the first number always goes on the inside. We're dividing by 16.5. Alert. You got to move that decimal once to the right on the outside, which means we have to move it once on the inside. If you don't see it, we know it's behind there, so we have to move it once. What goes in that placeholder? A 0. Okay, so we can rewrite our new problem so we don't get confused. 165, 12, 13, 2, 3. There we go. So it's going to go in twice, which is 330. We're going to get 66. Bring down that last 0. And that would be double. So 165 times 4. 24, 25, 26, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So it goes in 4 times evenly. And we have 24. Now, if you have one like this tomorrow, it would be silly not to use your calculator, seeing as how you're not in class. However, you do have to show your work and submit. So make sure that you are showing your work, showing your steps, okay, just to make sure. Greatest common factor of 25 and 60, we can use those division ladders that we've been using all year long. Both of those numbers are divisible by 5. 5 is a multiple of both of those numbers because they both end in 0 or 5. We know 5 goes into 25 5 times. We should know that 5 goes into 60 12 times. If we don't, do 60 divided by 5. Okay. And then nothing goes into 5 or 12, so we are done. Remember, greatest common factor, you're multiplying straight down. There's nothing to multiply 5 by, so our answer is just 5. Parallelogram for number 32, we're finding the area. Area is just base times height. So formula on the line, the base is 15, the height is 8. Remember, don't use diagonals. It didn't give us one, but don't use diagonals. Use that straight vertical line. So we have 120 inches squared. Okay. And then number 33, this is just from this last chapter. What number is 30% of 85? Easiest way to do these. Percent goes over 100. Is over of. Remember that? 30%, percentages go over 100. That's how we write 30%. Of 85, it just gave us our of, which means goes down there. And it says what is, not sure. So we can throw our X up there. We can do our cross multiplication. 85 times 30. $2,550, and we're dividing by 100. Okay. So if we do 2,550, we divide by 100. It goes in twice. Goes in 5 times, which is 500, with 50 left over. Let's add a decimal and a 0, and then it would go in 5 times. I'm going to scooch this other part over so I can finish. Bring that decimal straight up. So X is 25.5. Okay. All right, guys, go back, study. Email me if you have questions tomorrow. Please, please, please take your time. Once you submit your test, I cannot have you going back in and redoing it, okay? So do not submit it until you are absolutely sure you're ready to submit. Have your notes open, have your worksheet, your box page open to show your note, to show your work. Take your time. It is not a race, okay? Everybody, have a great day.